Anne Boleyn was the kind of woman who could walk into a room full of men convinced the world belonged to them and make them feel, for one terrifying moment, that the world might actually belong to her. She was not the innocent martyr later painted by romantics, nor the depraved seductress imagined by her enemies, but something far more unsettling. A politically literate, foreign-educated, fiercely intelligent, dangerously ambitious woman operating in a Tudor court where ambition was a male privilege and female brilliance was treated as a design flaw. Born around 1501 into the rising but still insecure Boleyn family, Anne was shipped off to Europe as a teenager, where she absorbed everything a woman was not supposed to absorb: court politics in Burgundy, French etiquette, artistic taste, theological debate, fashion, flirtation, diplomacy, and the subtle art of manipulating powerful men without appearing to do so. She returned to England speaking flawless French, dressed like Paris, thinking like a strategist, and radiating the kind of charisma that unsettles people who believe women should be pleasant, silent, and replaceable. Henry VIII first noticed her while he was busy seducing her sister Mary, the Boleyn family's earlier offering to the king, and when he turned his gaze on Anne, he expected her to be as accessible as the sister, but Anne refused, not with the coyness of a maiden, but with the calculation of a woman who understood Tudor politics. Mistresses come and go, queens shape dynasties. This single refusal transformed Henry from a monarch into a lovesick hunter. He wrote her letters dripping with desire, begging for her, swearing she alone could heal his soul, his body, his kingdom. Letters so embarrassingly emotional, they still make historians cringe. Anne gave him affection carefully measured in teaspoons, but withheld the one thing he wanted, her body, and that forced Henry into the greatest political tantrum in European history. He demanded that the Pope annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Rome refused. Catherine was the aunt of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, Europe's most powerful ruler, so Henry did the unthinkable. He broke England away from the Catholic Church entirely, declared himself head of the Church of England, seized monasteries, humiliated clergy, executed dissenters, and reshaped the country's spiritual identity, all because one woman told him no. Few people in history have triggered a schism by refusing to sleep with a king. Anne became queen in 1533, dazzling, triumphant, and already surrounded by enemies sharpening their daggers. She was not a quiet ornament like Catherine. She was outspoken, sharp-tongued, allergic to obedience, and politically involved to a degree that made Tudor men deeply nervous. She supported religious reformers, argued theology, influenced royal appointments, pushed Henry toward Protestant-leaning advisors, and wielded her new power like someone who expected more from life than embroidery and childbirth. Her first child, Elizabeth, was healthy but female, and Henry, who treated fatherhood like a divine scoreboard, considered this a disappointing opening move. Anne tried again and again, suffering 3 miscarriages, one of them a son, each loss further poisoning Henry's affection and adding fuel to court whispers that God disapproved of her. Henry's passion curdled into irritation, then boredom, then resentment. He began to glance toward Jane Seymour, the antithesis of Anne, soft, obedient, silent, pliable, the perfect antidote to a queen who had opinions. Meanwhile, Anne made enemies faster than Henry made promises. She insulted nobles, challenged Cromwell, mocked Bishop Gardiner, clashed with conservative factions, and gained a reputation for being too clever, the most unforgivable sin for a Tudor woman. Cromwell, Henry's most ruthless minister, had once been her ally, but when Anne criticized his greed in distributing dissolved monastery lands, she signed her own death warrant. Cromwell believed political conflict should not be solved by debate. It should be solved by funerals. In 1536, he built a case against Anne so outrageous it bordered on parody. Adultery with multiple men, incest with her brother George Boleyn, plotting the king's murder, accusations so absurd that even the Spanish ambassador wrote home saying the charges were clearly invented but would nonetheless succeed because the king wished them to. Anne was arrested, dragged to the Tower of London, and subjected to interrogations orchestrated not for truth, but for spectacle. She maintained her innocence with a mixture of grief, intelligence, and razor-sharp composure. She held herself with such dignity that even her jailers admitted she seemed every inch a queen, even in chains. Her trial was a political performance. Lords pretending to weigh evidence, jurors pretending to deliberate, Cromwell pretending to be impartial, Henry pretending to be wounded rather than eager to remarry. The guilty verdict was inevitable. The incest charge alone revealed the cruelty of her enemies. They chose the one accusation guaranteed to destroy her reputation forever because killing her body was not enough. They wanted to kill her legacy. Henry, in a gesture of mercy, ordered a French swordsman for the execution, believing it more dignified than an English axe, a surprisingly aesthetic consideration from a man arranging the death of the woman he once rewrote a religion for. On May 19, 1536, Anne walked to the scaffold in a gown the color of rich wine, elegant even in ruin, surrounded by spectators torn between pity, fascination, and schadenfreude. She gave a calm speech praising the king, not because he deserved it, but because she needed her daughter Elizabeth to survive. Then she knelt, praying softly. The executioner swung once, her head fell, the crowd gasped. 11 days later, Henry married Jane Seymour, proving how efficiently Tudor kings disposed of women once affection expired. But Anne Boleyn refused to stay buried. Her daughter Elizabeth grew into the greatest monarch England ever produced, the irony so sharp it borders on poetic murder. The woman executed for failing to give Henry a son gave England a queen who forged an empire, defeated the Spanish Armada, patronized Shakespeare, and reshaped the world. Anne's enemies portrayed her as a witch, a temptress, a homewrecker, a political virus. Her allies painted her as a victim, a saint, a proto-feminist icon. But the truth is far more interesting. Anne Boleyn was a woman who understood power in an age when women were not allowed to have any, a woman who refused to be a footnote, a woman who rose too fast, burned too brightly, and frightened too many men who believed their thrones, egos, and gender were ordained by God. She wasn't killed because she sinned. She was killed because she succeeded. And history, with its usual hypocrisy, eventually elevated her above the very men who destroyed her.